We've identified a new asbestos-related disease, and we're figuring out ways to avoid it.
Her story lives on in each and every one of you.
Firefighters that have lost their lives, that have really put everything on the line.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Barry. This is a splendid opportunity for me. I know I'm preaching to the choir, and with this photo exhibit, we can reach other people who might pass our concerns by. This exhibit will move on Monday to the AFL-CIO and then to the Harvard School of Public Health and various professional organizations of physicians. We hope that if you have ideas for the exhibit, that it can we can take those into consideration where it might also travel. I want to introduce the photographs. If we could move. Yeah, sure. Thank you.
You just have to tell me next.
Okay. I want to introduce the exhibit that is a look back and hopefully will become a look forward to our concerns about asbestos use and its ban. The first slide is of World War II shipyard workers. There were some 4.5 million shipyard workers exposed to asbestos in World War II. And here we have, on the right, a photograph I took in 1991 of the consequence. That's all too familiar to you. What I try to do in my photography is personalize the subjects who have had been harmed. The badges that go through this exhibit tie the worker and the company who they work for together. And as a photographer, sometimes that's very hard to do. If we could go to the next slide, please. In 1990, I had the privilege of photographing Dr. Irving Selikoff in his office as he presided at the Asbestos, the Third Wave Conference. And to me, he is our champion. This exhibit kind of came about as Barry and I were brainstorming about a way to honor Dr. Selikoff, and I asked Barry a question. I said, when is Irving's birthday? And Barry's mind is a human storehouse of information, and it wasn't long before he said, 1915. And I said, well, that's 100 years ago, and this is an appropriate time to honor Dr. Selikoff and his accomplishment to protect workers worldwide regarding asbestos exposure. If we could go to the next slide. I have been a workplace photographer specializing in dangerous occupations for some 45 years now. Back in, I think this was 1985, I photographed a worker at the American Standard toilet factory in Plainfield, Connecticut, using talc to dust toilet molds so that they would release from the molds. So this exhibit is a combination of my photographs that I've taken throughout the years and historic ones that we've gathered over time. And maybe this is a good point to make a pitch for gathering an archive of historic images, product catalogs, for the use of the organization to reach beyond our numbers. This morning, Tony Rich brought me a stack of photographs he acquired of John's Mansville manufacturing operations. These images are so telling. He's going to let me scan them and make them available to the organization, and with them we can really show what happened in a very graphic way. And so if we go to the next slide, one of the first employee badges I collected was of a man by the name of Orville Frank. Orville's badge is stained and corroded, and he looks like he has had the world on his shoulders. With a little research, I found that Orville died at age 39. That's the only fact I know about him. But you have had more direct experience with your loved ones, and many of them have been harmed in workplaces. And so if you have badges and related visual family memorabilia, I'm very interested in hearing about it. There's a flyer attached to the exhibit with my contact information. We want to reach forward with this exhibit using documented work histories and visual badges, preferably photo ID badges, that connect the worker to his or her workplace. Next slide, please. And with that in mind, here's a Hispanic woman, probably a badge in the 1940s. In the exhibit, you'll see a Westinghouse worker, not the same woman, sewing asbestos gloves. And the caption of the photo, produced by the Westinghouse Corporation, touts the fact that the woman had been sewing these gloves for 3 years. And so you can see the kind of direct exposure that the companies touted and promoted. When Barry Castleman saw this badge, he said, "This is such a sickening badge." I don't think those are his direct words, but the idea was there. Here we have an individual who's personalized with his name and the corporation. And the badges are representative of workplaces that used, manufactured, or mined asbestos. And so if we could go to the next slide. Pratt & Whitney Aircraft. Here's a badge I sort of equate with industrial jewelry. They're beautifully made. The portrait of the woman is someone with a sense of purpose about her. She may well have been one of those individuals who installed brakes in aircraft during World War II that contained asbestos. The next slide is a longshoreman from Baltimore. I learned yesterday that in Baltimore, they shipped asbestos to South American countries in the hulls of large ships, just loose asbestos. Well, of course, the longshoremen were involved in that operation, both here and in the receiving country. Well, the countries in the coffee producing areas would then load coffee beans into those same ships that would then return to Baltimore. And so it's very likely that some of those fibers ended up in our coffee cups. Last slide, please. So this is an example of another beautiful badge, lovely looking woman who worked in the steel shipbuilding yards in Baltimore. To me, these images have a special power. There's a dignity about them. And so I look forward to meeting each and every one of you. If you have personal archives that are visual, you can keep your eyes out for items that tell our story. And these will be put together in an archive that can be used in Linda's future lobbying efforts, used at new exhibits that evolve. And with that, I thank you very much.